Hi everyone, my name is Lindsay Santacroce, and today I'm going to be explaining why I think the emotional attentional blink is actually a pop-out blink. We live in a world in which we are constantly being bombarded by a mass amount of visual information, and we must attend to what is important while ignoring distractors. For example, while driving, we're able to pay attention to the other cars on the road and the street signs because they're important to our current task, which is driving. At the same time, we're able to ignore the birds flying overhead and the billboards on the side of the road because they're currently irrelevant. Now I'm going to demonstrate how we study this kind of goal-driven attention in the lab. You're going to see a stream of rapidly flashing images, and one of those images is going to be of a fruit. I want you to try to search for and remember the fruit, okay? Okay, what fruit did you see? Good, you saw an orange. That was an example of a rapid serial visual presentation task, or an RSVP task. In the task, we see a bunch of rapidly flashing filler items. So in the demo, those were images of objects, and then there are one or more targets, so that was the fruits. And this is how we study temporal attention, which is attention across time. So the idea is when you see the stream of images, you're able to select the fruit as a target, and then your brain takes the time to process that target. So then you're able to report it at the end of the trial. And humans are very good at this. Most, if not all of you, were able to see the orange, even though I presented those images for 50 milliseconds each. So this shows how quick and efficient our goal-driven attention is. However, sometimes highly salient information that is not currently relevant to our goals can capture our attention away from our goals. For example, if a dog runs out in front of your car unexpectedly, that will capture your attention so that you're able to react accordingly so that you don't hit the dog. However, this can also be dangerous, such as when an accident on the side of the road captures your attention away from the road and causes another accident. Now I'm going to show you how we study this kind of attentional capture in the lab. You're again going to see a stream of images, and one will be a fruit. Try to remember the fruit. Okay, what fruit did you see? Good, you saw kiwi. Or maybe you missed that one. Did you happen to notice the disturbing image also present in the stream? Well, in general, emotional stimuli tend to capture our attention, even in spite of our current goals. So this is often used as a way to study temporal attentional capture. And the reason you were probably less likely to see the kiwi in the last demo was because of something known as the emotional attentional blink, or the EAB. This isn't a real blink, but it's a momentary lapse in temporal attention caused by attentional capture by emotional stimuli, which draws attention away from a target. So in the RSVP task for EAB paradigms, it's the same that I showed you before, but now there is an emotional distractor that precedes the target with a varying amount of filler items separating the two items. So the idea is when you see the emotional image in the stream, even though it's task irrelevant, it'll capture your attention, forcing you to select it as if it were an important item, and then your brain takes the time to process it. So if the target appears shortly after the emotional distractor, so here this is lag 2, when the target is 2 spots away from the emotional distractor, you're still busy processing the distractor, so then you're unable to select and process the target and are left wondering what you saw. However, if you increase the number of filler items between the emotional distractor and the target, so here this is lag 4, when the target is 4 spots away from the distractor, that distractor will still capture your attention, forcing you to select and process it, but now you've completely processed it by the time the target appears and are thus able to select and process it as well and can see the target. So to look at that graphically, on the x-axis we have lag, or the position of the target relative to the emotional distractor, and then on the y-axis we have accuracy. So when the emotional distractor and target are close in temporal proximity, like at lag 2, which is what you guys all saw in the demo, participants perform very poorly. However, as lag increases, so does performance. So this here is the classic emotional attentional blink shape. Looks like this. So now that I've explained to you what the EAB is, I'm going to tell you why I don't actually believe it. So first, let's look at some previous paradigms. The original and still the most common uses landscapes, images of landscapes as the target and the filler items. Another image paradigm uses objects as the fillers and the targets. And in these and other image paradigms, they tend to use unpleasant images of humans or animals. And with these and similar paradigms, researchers have found the EAB many, many times before, and it's widely accepted as attentional capture by the emotional valence. However, I noticed something about these paradigms. All of the emotional distractors are visually distinct from the surrounding stimuli. So is it really the emotion that's capturing your attention? Of note, a lot of these studies often also have neutral conditions with neutral images of humans or animals, which are also visually distinct. So while the EAB has been shown with emotional images of humans or animals, the studies with neutral humans or animals tend to show this neutral blink. Moreover, I recently conducted a study with 4 experiments, and I was only able to yield an EAB when the emotional distractors were visually distinct from the surrounding stimuli. Finally, in the demo I did with you guys, this is actually what you saw. So I actually cheated and made the emotional distractor brighter than the rest of the images. So was this really an emotional blink or more of a pop-out blink caused by capture from the distinctiveness? So while it is assumed that the capture in the EAB is caused by emotion, I hypothesize that it's actually a pop-out blink caused by visual distinctiveness that can then be modulated or prolonged by emotion. This leads me to my recent study, where I wanted to compare the time courses of blinks caused by visual distinctiveness and emotion. So I did the paradigm that we did in the demo. So fillers were objects, targets were fruits, and then I had a critical distractor, which was manipulated based on visual distinctiveness. So we have visually similar and visually distinct, and also valence. So we have baseline and emotional. In the baseline similar condition, which I'm going to refer to as the true baseline condition, the critical distractors was just another object image, just like everything else in the stream. And then in the emotional condition, they were unpleasant humans. Importantly, in the visually distinct conditions, the images appeared brighter than the surrounding images. And because I was interested in looking at the time course of the blinks caused by these different conditions, I compared each of the conditions to the true baseline, which is the similar baseline condition, at many consecutive lags, so I can determine the exact start, end, and duration of each of the resulting blinks. So here are the overall results. Of course, there was no blink in the baseline similar condition. In the emotional similar condition, the blink didn't begin until lag 3, lasted through lag 4, and recovered by lag 5. So this is the time course of the emotional similar blink. Now, the baseline distinct blink began right away at lag 1, lasted through lag 2, and recovered around lag 3. So this is the time course of the baseline distinct blink. And finally, in the emotional distinct blink, the blink also began right away at lag 1 and lasted all the way to lag 4 and then recovered around lag 5. So this is the time course of the emotional distinct blink. Looking at just the emotional similar and baseline distinct blinks next to each other, it seems that the pop-out blink begins right away at lag 1, lasts about 2 lags, and then the emotional blink begins later on around lag 3 and also lasts 2 lags. What's interesting is when you put these 2 blinks together, the one from just emotion and just distinctiveness, you get the blink from the emotional distinct condition. So this indicates that the EAB is really a 2-phase process. First, the initial pop-out by visual distinctiveness, and then emotional modulation. Returning to the driving example once more, I like to think about it this way. When a car on the road wants to capture your attention, it often uses lights. So if you see the bright yellow lights on top of a taxi, much like in the neutral distinct condition, it would likely capture your attention right away because of the lights, but because it's neutral, it'll only last a short while. However, if those lights instead belong to a police car, like in the emotional distinct condition, it'll also capture your attention because of the distinctiveness, but you might focus on it a little bit longer. It might take a while to disengage from that because of its emotional valence. But at the same time, if it's an undercover police car without the lights, even though it is still emotional, like in the emotional similar condition, it likely won't capture your attention, at least right away, even though it still has this emotional valence connected to it. Thank you.